Hi, welcome to Neurons AI. Today we're going to go through a platform demo, and we're going to do this with the mentality of research and insights. So imagine you're a researcher or an insights person, and you're really here to validate, test, and research how advertising communication, point of sales, social media advertising, or out of home is going to impact consumers in the market and how you can better improve them as a overall perspective or as a singular asset piece. Now, the first thing that I want you to pay attention to are the first three assets here in the top left corner. There are three different markers on these. One is called launch, another is called optimize, and a third is called iterate. Now, what these means is where does this ad performance-wise in terms of impact and effectiveness actually place itself? Is it ready to go to market, as in launch? Should we look at optimizations and further improvements, or should we completely reiterate this setup in order to make this ad perform better whenever it goes to market? Additionally, you can see in this area, there's a numeric version of this. So the Neurons impact score goes from 1 to 10. The 1 to 10 score explains how much is your asset performing well across all of our different metrics. This means that it's a highly specific weighted model that takes into account attention, emotional engagement, cognitive demand, memory, and even areas of interest. This means things like how much attention is there to the call to action, to the brand, to the product, or even to the copy. And this means this score collates all of that into one singular score. With this score, it's possible to compare, or for that sake, understand very quickly which ads are actually going to perform well whenever you go to market. So this is an overview and very simple and kind of easy way to see this. Now, if we want to deep dive a bit more, you can see I've taken a Pepsi ad here, and we land on this first page, which is the Neurons impact score page. On the page on the left side, you have what we call the attention heat map. Attention heat map means the more red, the more attention it gets. The less red or the green, or if it's fully transparent, it doesn't get any attention. So this is an easy way for you to see attention will heavily go to the copy in this ad and to the faces of the people who are cheering inside the ad. Now, the products themselves won't necessarily get a massive amount of attention, and especially not those product moments that we are trying to instill here are really not driving any attention at all. So the score of this ad is 6.5. This means that it lands in what we call optimize. 7 is where it goes into launch, and of course the higher you get, the better. 5 is really what you would assume is the average ad. So 6.5 is still a good ad. It's better than the average, but it is not a optimized ad for the purpose that you might be doing. You can also see here that we're working with brand building, food and beverage, and display ads, which means that you have a ton of different benchmark opportunities, whether that's personal care or fashion, or even if you go into services like telecommunication, finance, or anything else like that. You also have a lot of different use cases, so digital advertising like social media, traditional media like print, out of home, or even TV and YouTube and TikTok for video assets only. So with this, you're able to analyze and validate the impact of advertising in a matter of seconds. So instead of going to market with research that might take days or even weeks, and sometimes you now can get research and insights in seconds. All 95% compared to if you actually went to market and did the research as a paid research piece. Now, as you can see, the overview page might be a little bit simple if you come from an insights and research background. You want to dig deeper. You want to get into the cool stuff. So the metrics level is where you get into some of those details. So if we click on the metrics, you can see here that you have all of our 4 metrics, the focus score, the engagement, the cognitive demand, and also the memory score. You also have where is normally high performance ads going to place themselves if it is within the benchmark that we have defined up front, which is branding, food and beverage, and a display ad. Additionally, you have your insights board where it tells you exactly what goes on in the ad. This means that we have built a multi-model LLM integration that understands everything that goes on in the ad in terms of branding, products, people, text, etc. And it also understands all of our complex and very specific metrics for human predictive responses. Put together, this insights panel is really your expert in neuroscience, behavioral science, and marketing. Additionally, you also have what we call brand building impact metrics. So these are the most important metrics for driving brand impact. And as we can see here, the memorability of the ad is very strong, the attention areas are strong, the engagement is strong, but if we look at the branding, we're not as strong, and also the product attention is fairly low. So there are some things that we can improve here. And what is really cool about this is that we can start deep diving. So now we can actually click on what we call areas of interest. Now the areas of interest gives you the opportunity to carve out specific pieces of the ad and understand exactly how much attention goes to the brand, how much goes to the product, people, copy, and the football players. And here we can clearly see that 21.4% go to people, 39.2% to the copy, and 9.8% to the football players. The product itself only has 14.5%. This means that about 70% across these three elements go to everything that's related to having fun with football. And only about 14.5% go to the actual product that we're trying to advertise. So we are really looking at like a 30-70 in terms of all of the small nitty-gritties from Pepsi getting some of the attention, but clearly the biggest part of the attention will go to the actual moments of football and enjoyment. Now, if we look at also the memory heat map, we can also carve out how memorable is every single piece in this ad. So you can see here, the people have a 24.8 in memory, the copy is 14.4, football players 11.5, and the product is 7.2. So again, we're looking at a 80-20 or so in terms of how much memory are people actually going to have towards everything that's not Pepsi related. This really means that this ad is a good ad. It's engaging, it's memorable, it creates good attention, but people will remember football games with New York Giants. And this means that if you want to get people to watch those games, great, but if you're Pepsi and you want people to drink more of your colas, then you actually need to redistribute the attention a bit. Maybe even make sure that those products moments are more integrated, as we can see here with this person holding the Pepsi Cola. So there is a final section, which is also a very interesting section. After we've done all of our deep diving, trying to understand why is the score only 6.5, it's performing well. Well, it's because branding and product moments are not good enough. Therefore, we can go to what we call optimize. The optimize section is where we get access to not only the insights, but actually the recommendations for how to make this ad better. Here we can see that there are a few different recommendations which are fairly precise. For example, this integrate product naturally. So here, show Pepsi cans within fan celebration moments, mid-sip, during cheers, or as a viewing ritual element. Current placements lack emotional charge despite moderate attention on products. This means that because the product is so kind of placed in a moment that doesn't really have anything to do with football, it doesn't really connect emotionally or doesn't drive the memory that it should. So if we look at this guy, who is really the area where we get most of our memory, as we can see on the heat map being very green here, we could take this can and we could bring it up to this person's mouth instead and make the person sip off the can, so the attention and the emotional engagement that goes here is actually connected to the product itself. Of course, we should also remove the finger so the actual brand is seen, as it's very difficult to see this is a Pepsi Cola. This is just one example of how we could do this. There are, of course, things like message hierarchy, the football action bridging, even implementing kind of amplifying on emotional anchors, and also connecting the transition between the two scenes better. So you can see this will really give you everything from one score that tells you whether it's good or not, deep dive metrics where you can get into all of the details about every single part of it, and even recommendations. Now imagine you as an insights person had 500 ads last year. You can now upload all of these, get results in seconds, and then do meta-analyses across all of your campaigns. Understand the campaigns that did not perform well. Was it because they didn't have enough attention to the brand? Was it because memorability was not driven by the product? What was really the reason? Of course, it's also possible to do this for video ads. So for a video ad, whether it's TV, social media, etc., you also get the scoring. But what's really cool about this is that you can even tap into a frame-by-frame understanding of how does focus, memory, engagement, or cognitive demand play itself out over time. You can even tap in here, say, hey, we only want to look for memorable moments. And here we can see memory builds really well in the beginning, and then we have a drop at about 7-8 seconds, and then we see some building again, and all the way to the end we do touch on that high memory levels again. The same you can do with engagement, where engagement might come from a high, go into a stable, and drop lower. Here's an example of maybe, let's see, so engagement and memory is actually not correlated right here. And it means that there is a moment that's not necessarily directly engaging people, but it actually sticks to people's mind in a different way. This could be through a cognitive moment that is actually not as demanding on the brain, so therefore memory is easier to build in that moment itself. So this is really your one-stop shop for analyzing, predicting, validating, and even optimizing advertising content, package design, web landing pages, and much more. So thank you for listening in, and have a great rest of your day.